there any other personal info you want filled up on? Or?
Hey, Mr. King, how was your weekend?
It was tolerable.
Tolerable.
That's a whole good thing.
Yep. I take those.
Aren't both weekends again kind of tolerable?
Some more so than others, I guess. It was a relatively good, tolerable weekend. Put it that way. So, what do we think of Holden?
I love
Grace,
Holden.
Grace is shaking her head no.
I love this book so much, but the Holden, the way he
As she
thinks
reads
is so
it, time number
frustrating.
4.
Yeah. Because I've read it like a bunch of times, just trying to find something I like about it, but I really don't like it. I love the book.
What? Sum up your chief complaints.
I think just like the way that he doesn't care about anything.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't have ambition.
Yeah, like he has zero goals or focus. Like it's not like he's a failure just because like of the hardship. He's just a failure because
He's the person you'd find like 30 years later after a report shooting up a cardboard box and be like, this is fine.
he didn't even peak in high school.
He didn't what?
He didn't even peak in high school. He just didn't even peak ever.
He was like 5.
What else now? Whether complaints or things that you do like about him. Some sound like a friend for life, that we're gonna pal around New York City and good
Honestly,
times
that'd
will
be
be
fun.
had.
I like how it's like his, like what you said, like it's his every single thought. It's like so descriptive. So like, does that make sense? Like it's not just him speaking, like it's everything that he does.
Sure, and I mean, and Grace has said, like, I like the way the book is written, or like the style of it, I just don't like him. So is that you going that you actually like this guy, and, you know, you and him could be buddies if you were in your own life, you know, 60 years ago or whatnot, or is it, I like the fact that I know everything that's going on in his mind, but by no means do I ever want to be associated with this kid?
I think I like him.
Okay.
I like how like straight up he is kind of.
Yeah, you got a lot of
Okay, so
Like,
you
I'm just gonna, like,
so you like his honesty, so to speak,
yeah.
or bluntness, whereas someone else could go, I don't like the fact because he tells lies and exaggerates every single chance that he gets. Some of you probably mentioning about a brain tumor, you know, that he's telling Mrs. Morrow on the train and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, dude.
Some of you did mention that, which is fine. Don't have to say that one. Kobe, what were you going to mention?
I was gonna mention, like, I think he's hiding a lot of his insecurities with his bluntness. Like, he definitely has this like outer shell that he's trying to protect himself.
Okay.
Also, when he's getting his goal check, my God.
So would you say he's putting up a front more than anything? Good sass, bad sass.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes
Puts
it's
up
like,
a
it's
front.
not really necessary.
Any come to mind, like when you're going, really? Putting you on the spot.
It's all over the place. Like, it's really
Yeah. After you tell us your thoughts on Holden.
I mean, I don't really not like him. I think he's kind of annoying because, like, he's
No,
just
Holden, not me about you guys.
I mean, I like him though. I think that I think he's funny when he says like it. I don't know. Even though sometimes it's like highlighting the negative parts, I think it's kind of funny.
Is he pessimistic?
Yes.
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 Mr. Payne, why did you bother asking me that question? Alright, anything else? Yeah.
Oh, other than he says he appreciates things, he just doesn't feel like happiness about it.
I mean, yeah, okay. Things that he does like, here, we could put it Things that make him happy. Or at least things that make him not sad. Jane? I'd say at least 2 more would come off the bat then fairly quickly. Phoebe? Who we haven't really met. We will.
Cigarettes. Albie?
Allie?
Allie or his brother's dead.
Yeah, Allie.
Allie, okay.
Cigarettes and liquor, which he has a hard time finding. I mean, basically, those 3 are the main things that he likes. And there'll be other things that he'll mention he likes too. It could be something as random as like making snowball in the very beginning. Like when you get the perfect round snowball, but eventually it kind of goes away. He seems to like the his red hunting hat, that he has. So there are items that certainly he focuses on. Most of the commentary, though, that he's giving is going to be a little derisive towards people in general.
What about like cigarette rules at this time? Is it like there's no laws because like aren't they all underage?
It's not until 61, I think, when the Surgeon General warning gets slapped on cigarettes. So honestly, I don't remember what's legal, what's illegal so far. I mean, the alcohol, obviously, they're making a big deal about being 21 and things like that. Book gets published in 51. It's Christmas time of 49.
Okay.
It would not be. People are not obviously going to make a big deal if he is smoking a cigarette. It's not that everyone would be sitting in their English class or social studies and writing about Egyptians while smoking on a cigarette. But if you see like news footage from the 50s, Walter Cronkite, remember, will be sitting behind the desk, and usually you see a little plume of smoke off to the side. That's their cigarette. It would not be uncommon for pregnant women to be smoking cigarettes. So the health hazards, risks, all those things, there's not a strong correlation at this point. I don't know this for fact, but he's also in a prep school. So, in many prep schools. So you have people who are separate from regular high school where, the whole idea is to be intellectual, go off to college, kind of feel a little bit more mature than maybe you really are. And so the cigarettes will probably kind of be going along with that. But, him lighting a woman's cigarette on a train isn't going to be why do you have a lighter or matches on you? It's not going to be unusual. It'll be necessarily the norm for everyone, but you're probably not going to get people calling him and out on him too much.
So his brother DB, is he like a famous writer or what?
DB, so, and the line that kind of throws everyone off is when he says that he's off in Hollywood prostituting himself, and DB is not a prostitute in Hollywood or anything like that. But so far as the family, and we started writing them down here, you have DB, who would be the oldest. We don't really have a specific age for him. We get a few details about him that would kind of give us a ballpark. Probably looking at someone in early to mid-20s. I'd say probably not going beyond 25. And then you have Holden. And then you have Allie. And then you have Phoebe. Anyone remember how old Phoebe is? 10. His sister's 10. Holden is 16. Allie? He's 2 years younger than Holden.
But
and
Holden might also be 17.
Well, sort of. Holden is 13 when Allie dies, so Allie is 11 at the time of his death. In relation to Holden, he would be, 14 years old if he were still alive. Or you could argue he would be 17 years old, or 15 years old, since Holden is 17 years old. But he's 16 years old.
Oh, he's telling a story when he's 17.
Right. It's a flashback. He's telling you, all this stuff that has happened to him. So Holden in the story in New York City is 16. Holden telling you what's going on is 17. So is it a huge difference? No, but in the story he's 16.
Do we ever find out how Allie dies?
Well, yeah, we know that he dies from leukemia. You just missed that part. And we also know that Allie's death has a very profound impact on Holden, because what does Holden do? He punches out the garage windows, after Allie's death. So Holden. which some people will not going solely on this one example, but some folks will argue that Holden has a little bit maybe of like a mean streak in him or a violent streak. He talks about that magic spot there. There we go. Talks about him being a pacifist, but what are like little violent tendencies or issues that will come up for him when you do have violence? We know that he punches the windows. Again, not saying that he's therefore going to be a terrible kid or he's a horrible person, but what are other things that we know about it at this point?
He attacks how do you say his name?
Stradlater?
Stradlater.
Warren?
Yeah, that he attacks him whenever he talks about Jane
That went well.
and giving her the time.
He cannot take a punch.
I didn't realize it was
He
a common
cannot take a punch.
Who else does he get in a fight with?
The elevator attack.
Maurice.
Maurice.
Pay the pimp, otherwise.
Play Maurice, Beauty and the Beast.
After Maurice beats him up, what then is the thought that goes on in his mind? What does Holden start to fantasize about?
Oh, him shooting Maurice.
He says about, I'm going to plug Maurice. He kind of has like this fantasy, daydream, film noir, gangster movie kind of thing where he's going to be in his trench coat, wearing his fedora, and he's going to take the Tommy gun and plug Maurice. And of course, he's going to have, he's going to be shot as well. And who's going to be there to help him and save the day and recoup from his wounds? Good old Jane will be there to, nurse him back to health. When he's up in the hotel room, what's the other little thing of violence that really kind of more towards himself that he briefly contemplates how serious he is about it? Who really knows?
Doesn't he say like he would jump out the window if there was somebody to like cover him up?
If it wasn't going to be such a big scene, and see people him laying there, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the window in the bathroom, he kind of thinks a little bit about as well. Does he have issues?
Yes.
I mean, this is your buddy.
What?
This is your buddy.
Oh no, I was just saying that because Kobe said he has
No,
issues.
no. Sean, he may be your boy, but the student's got some PTSD or something like that. Or like some anger issues.
Why?
You're going to tell. Because I think he's just like tired of the, as he puts it, phoniness of it all. And plus, Allie's death really hit him hard. So you can maybe attest that is the start of his pessimistic streak.
Yeah, I'd say that's when things start going downhill for him.
Yeah. So like, if you don't really move on from the death, it changes.
So do we then feel bad for Holden, and not that we're trying to change Grace's viewpoint, where I do like this guy. We're long lost buddies, comrades.
I do feel
We're
bad for him.
comrades.
It's just like I don't like the way he acts, but that's not saying I don't.
Okay.
Coming out of personal experience, like people deal with death in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really feel like upset with his actions, but I also don't really condone.
When you say act, like, what are you thinking of so far as actions?
Like-
he seems to be a man of inaction.
Like punching the windows, getting into fights, not being able to take a punch, contemplating suicide even for a brief moment, thinking about killing someone. Like those, like it's not. In my experience with this, it's not what actions you do; it's the thoughts that go through your head that I think are the most dangerous because, like, he thought about it. Like he didn't do it, but he at least went down that dark road a bit in his mind.
You're talking about with the window.
The window and like multiple, shooting more, like thinking about shooting Maurice and that kind of stuff.
Okay. The window one, I would say, is probably then Grace. We can get to your viewpoints here in a second. The window one seems to be a little bit more of a legitimate concern. I tend to give him a pass on the plug Maurice kind of thing, and and not that you've had these moments, or Justin has had these daydreams where he's going to put on the gangster hat and all that kind of stuff. But I picture a kid watching Transformers or something on TV, or I wish I was a Transformer and I wish I could blow up Decepticons and all that kind of stuff, or seeing an Avenger film or whatnot, and kind of put yourself in those. That I kind of give him a little bit of a pass on, simply because that type of film would be the Avenger movie of the day, or the Lego movie of the day, or something along those lines.
Well, no, I was just gonna say that, like, so many people have these same thoughts that it's not really a cause for concern until he talks about suicide.
And that's the tricky thing with him, is because you're getting what he says as well as what he thinks. There's not too many books that go total stream of consciousness where you have like a running commentary of every little thing that's out there. So like Sean's sitting at lunch eating, he's having the Big Chief. Oh, it's the greatest sandwich I've ever had. I just love the Big Chief. Justin walks by, I can't stand that kid. I wish he would just go away, give me a little space of English time. Oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, everything's good. Yep. Don't ever sit by me, folks. I'm going to take this fork and I'm going to...
Do it. There you go.
Sit by him. Do it.
Balls.
There's anyone ever hear of Jeffersonian Bible? The Jeffersonian Bible.
I have.
I've heard of it.
What is
I
it?
haven't read it.
It's the Bible that Thomas Jefferson took. He didn't like what it said, so he literally took a knife and cut out parts of the Bible.
Do you remember what he cut out, or what he kept, or what he cut out?
Well, he cut out all parts that mentioned the divine power of Jesus and his miracles and stuff, because he didn't believe that there was anything in the supernatural
Isn't that like half the
that
book?
existed.
And so
Yeah.
what he focuses on are the words then of Jesus. So the Jeffersonian Bible is basically Jesus' dialogue, and that's about it. If you were to do that to this book, where you cut everything out that he does not say, and don't do it, but you were to remove everything that he does not say, so the narration and things like that, you only focus on his words, I think the perception is going to be pretty different, because you're not going to get the Plug Maurice lines. You're not going to get him talking about jumping out a window, because he doesn't say those things to anybody. Now, you'll get him getting in a fight with Stradlin, or you'll get him getting in a fight with Maurice and all those folks, but you're not going to get the internal kind of conflict that's necessarily taking place. Take a look at page 1, because this is like the most critical page in the book.
Freaking page 1.
That's the problem. You start off at the top. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. In the first place, that stuff bores me. In the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all, I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole goddamn autobiography or anything. I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here and take it easy. I mean, that's all I told DB about, and he's my brother-in-law. He's in Hollywood, that isn't too far from this crummy place, and he comes over and visits me practically every weekend. He's going to drive me home when I go home next month, maybe. He just got a Jaguar, one of those little English jobs that can do around 200 miles an hour.
So is he in the mental hospital?
He's somewhere.
Because that's one of the things. Like when I read this, I think it's something like off with him.
Yeah.
So he's
His mind jumps terribly.
oh, he's totally scattered all over the place. And so, yeah, there are things that make him happy. Certainly, you folks said that, well, yeah, he is pretty pessimistic throughout the course of it. Basically, so far as location, we don't know exactly, but he would be in some kind of mental facility where chances are, who's he actually really having the conversation with? Some kind of psychoanalyst, therapist, something along those lines. So what are you going to do? Well, you got to tell the person about everything that basically led up to you being here. So the events when he is 16, he's describing now in 17, basically the summer after it has happened. Let me tell you about all this stuff. So basically, the story that he's going to tell you is going to be what part of his life? the worst moments that I had that have led me to Boone being here. So the novel, like the timeline of the events, it's 3 days in New York City. You know, basically we're on day number 2. You know, you spend one day, that's the first night, now it's day number 2, we're gonna have one more night, then it's day number 3, that's the book. And by the end of the 3rd day, where is Holden? Rock bottom. So, you know, you're taking a look at, this is a person who has some issues. Yeah, he does. And somehow, some way, he ends up getting into this facility where he is trying to get help. But I guess in defense of him would be the way. Take the worst 3 days that you've had, and now let's fill all on paper for Allie to read and analyze. That's basically what we end up doing with Holden. Or at least the 3 days that lead to his, we'll say, mental breakdown, just because we don't know exactly what does take place. But it seems as if the main reason for this to happen, is going to be, there we go, certainly surrounds that guy. Because when Allie dies, how does Holden feel? Thank you for that precise word choice. Gonna follow it up with sad too, as the next one. What? Why is it? Let's not. And in all seriousness, because you can't just. Well, because it's sad, Mr. Kane. Why does he feel so terrible? And he doesn't state this word for word. This is making inferences now. Why does he feel so terrible about his younger brother's death? Think about things that are going around in his life at this point.
So Allie was like a really smart kid and like pretty like personable and stuff. And he feels like why should he get to live if Allie didn't?
Okay. Anytime Allie gets mentioned and anytime Phoebe gets mentioned, you'll really like this. I mean, they're the best person. If you got a chance to meet them, you really would love them. So he really builds those folks up. And he also builds Jane up quite a bit, but the Jane that he builds up is the Jane that we never really get to see at this point. Jane's right down the stairs and he doesn't even go over to visit her and see her. So builds them up. Why take Allie away and then, you know, stuck with me, the kid who flunks out of all his classes and writes about the Egyptians on Mr. Spencer's social studies test and doesn't seem to do a very good job with it. So there could be a little bit of guilt, why him, why not me kind of thing. What else?
I feel like that's his little brother, like you have such a connection with them. And so like once you lose him, it's like a piece of your life that's gone kind of.
Is there anyone else within his family where there could be a, clearly not through death, but is there anyone else in the family where there has been a similar loss? And I'd say there's one where the tables kind of get turned a little bit. Where's DB?
Hollywood.
Out in Hollywood. What's he doing? Oh, he's a writer. He's prostituting himself. That's not exactly a nice way to say he's a screenwriter or, you know, he's still making money. He's prostituting himself. So he's selling his talents for these crappy movies and scripts out there. You know, you're not doing, he's pursuing his dream or anything like that.
Yeah, I took that wrong.
Why is he going to be upset that DB left?
He left when Allie died.
Okay.
He needed that extra support and DB was around.
Okay, could be when Allie died.
He's finding success in the only thing that Holden finds success in is writing.
He's finding success, and what was the last part?
In his writing, and like Holden is that's the only thing Holden's good at, but
Okay.
he's better than him.
Okay, so I like to think I at least have the skill, but he's got the same one, and he's good at it and making money where I'm not. Yeah, that could certainly be part of it. So there, you certainly get the sense that, okay, number one, Allie only died 3 years ago. DB very well could have left around that very same time. You have Sean saying that maybe Holden feels bad for leaving his little brother, where you had that close connection. Well, not only is Allie a younger brother, who also is a younger brother, Holden, to DB, going through this crappy time, and this guy's maybe not there to help support me. What are moments in Holden's life that, based with Allie, bless you, you can tell he regrets? Like, there's definitely a moment with Allie where you can tell it's still bothering him they're riding their bikes to Bobby's house, and yeah, can I come? No, you're too little. You kind of stay behind. So what does Holden do to Allie? Kind of like in this memory, leaves him behind. Now what has he done? Is leaving him behind mentally, so to speak, after DB has kind of left him behind. This could all be kind of internally messing with him somewhat a little bit. So certainly Holden is in a rough spot where you get the sense that he doesn't really know maybe how to communicate his feelings. You don't get the sense he has anyone to talk to. Does he not know how to maybe cope with these things? And so the way I'm going to do that is just through punching out the windows. I mean, you know, what's the whole scene that he has with Sonny? What does he literally want to do? Talk. I'm not talking to you. You know, you didn't pay me money for talking. Well, can we just talk? No. So, you know, he really has no outlet to kind of get any emotions out to. You don't get a sense that relationship with mom and dad is one where he's really going to kind of share feelings. What are they sending him to? Prep school after prep school after prep school. So he's constantly kind of moving around from place to place. So dealing with those things certainly seem to be a pretty significant issue of his. But you do get some sense that, number one, you know things aren't working out for him because of where he's telling the story from. You can tell there's some emotional stress taking place. And you can also tell that when Holden seems to be his happiest, he likes to look back to past moments with Allie. What does he like about Jane? Oh, you should see it. When she plays checkers, she puts all the kings in the row. I could go down and see Jane. I just don't feel like it. No, I don't want to go. Why not go see Jane if she's right down there?
He doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to change his perception.
If she's going out on a date with Stratlander, maybe it's not the same Jane that it used to be. So there could be some issues with, you know, so far as memory and is she going to change a little bit. Favorite place to go? You know, he talks about museum because he like places that do not change. So that whole past present thing could be an issue of his. We have to take a look at it a little more.
Color coordinate your pen with your outfit.
It's about time you noticed.
I noticed last week I just didn't say it.